Another Wednesday edition of Mr. Relevant presented by Door County Distillery with you. Lots to get into as preseason football rolls on. We've got to take a look at the Badgers, too. Big news coming out of Madison ahead of, 16 days away from the season opener for the Wisconsin Badgers. They look to rebound here in year two under Luke Fickell, so we'll talk about that a bit later. I'm Alex Strouf with you from the Gerber Law Offices. One call, that's all studios at the Avenue in downtown Milwaukee. Josh DiMaggio with me as always, and of course, producer Tiny Hands. Hunter Vaughn is back at the Everlight Solar Studio in downtown Madison. So, Packers 1-0 in the preseason. The record doesn't matter. The points they scored don't really matter. What matters from game one, as we kind of exit our recap and more go to our preview of game two against Denver on Sunday, is Jordan Love threw a 65-yard touchdown pass. He left the game healthy, and he left the game with a 158.3. That is perfect passer rating. Those are all good. Dontavian Wicks looked good. 65-yard touchdown as mentioned. He was the receiver on that 65-yard touchdown connection from Love. Great. You didn't see a ton of the first-team defense. You didn't see, offense, but you also didn't see a ton of the first-team defense. And now, it's going to be treated more like, hey, the guys that are on the fringe of the roster are going to be the guys we're paying more attention to over the course of the next, at least this preseason game, but I would imagine both of the ones remaining, as I mentioned, Sunday against Denver and then the following Saturday at Lambeau against Baltimore. So Matt LaFleur announcing earlier this week on Monday after our show got done that we will not see Jordan Love and likely not a lot of the starters in Denver, which I'm good with, right? That's kind of what I've said all offseason is I want to see Love play the first preseason game and treat those joint practices, which they'll have Friday against Denver, as, kind of their game reps, more of a controlled environment. No injuries are going to happen, knock on wood. Hopefully, nothing too bad happens to anybody that's not Jordan Love because he won't get hit, which is good. And hopefully tempers don't flare too much. You don't want too chippy of a game on Sunday. So I'm good with this. Now, we'll talk about it in a second. But I'm curious from you, who do you want to see? Right? Are there guys that just aren't proven enough that you don't want to see take these two last preseason games off? Because we've talked about it in the past. And that specifically is on Matt LaFleur, when he hasn't played starters in the preseason, his teams have come out really flat in the first week of the regular season. You can think back a couple of years. They get boat raced by New Orleans in week one. The following year, they get boat raced by Minnesota. So you don't want that to happen again. Now, Jordan Love plays 3 snaps. Are we just going to call that all gung-ho? Everything's good. We're ready to roll. Or maybe we will see him a little bit in preseason game 3 against Baltimore. I would prefer not to see Jordan Love, but some of those other guys I would like to see. So we'll talk about that in a bit. But the big news this week is we will not see, it sounds like a lot of the starters Sunday against Denver. Now, look, there are battles that need to get hashed out, right? You look at quarterback 2 when it comes to Michael Pratt and Sean Clifford, who are each stock up and stock down respectively on Monday's show. When you look at some of those later receivers, right, the Bo Meltons, the Grant Duboses of the world, you want to see them. And I imagine you will Sunday against Denver. Defensively, though, I don't need to see Kenny Clark. I don't need to see Jair. I probably don't even need to see Xavier McKinney or Quay Walker. Obviously not Preston Smith, the only 30-year-old on this roster. But when it comes to the LVNs, Lucas Van Ness, when it comes to Devontae Wyatt, and a lot of those rookies at linebacker and safety who are healthy, you need to see them Sunday because they just need the reps, even if you're playing second or third team guys out in Denver. So that is crucial to the development and the future successes of the Green Bay Packers, who obviously have very high expectations for the 2024 season. So when you hear the news, Jordan Love's not going to play, I'm good with it. But Hunter, I'm curious from your perspective. You good with this? You good with not seeing Jordan Love Sunday as they will have the joint practice Friday in Denver?
If he's not going to play, then I think he has to play game 3. I would think that he's got to play at least a quarter because of the issue, like you said, like this team has struggled to get going early in the season in that week 1 game. So like you've got to, at some point, Matt LaFleur's got to look at that and be like, I got to change something up in the offseason to have this team ready to go. And I can't imagine that there's much they're going to change when it comes to the way they practice. So your next thought is, okay, let's change up how we approach the preseason games. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like he's going to do that. So week 1 against Philly might be a tough game. And like, I hate to use this as the reason why, but if the same thing keeps happening over and over and over again with this team, I think that's what you have to point to.
Yeah, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, right? And last year, right, because this was such a young team, everybody played in the preseason. And what happened in week 1? They went and they smoked Chicago on the road. And as I declared it on the first ever edition of Mr. Irrelevant almost a year ago, we've almost been doing this thing for a year, Hunter. That's nuts. But as I declared on the first episode of Mr. Irrelevant, which was the day after that Chicago game, Jordan Love is the front runner for the MVP. I imagine if he doesn't play, we still might be walking away from that game in Brazil against Philadelphia singing the same tune. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Jordan Love doesn't play the rest of the preseason. We walk away from week 1 against Philly, the Packers win, and I'm saying, hey, Jordan Love's the front runner for the MVP. I wouldn't be surprised. That wouldn't be shocking to me. I would expect that might be the case. So I'm good if he doesn't play or if he does play. Now, I'm curious on this, Hunter, on your thoughts on this, because I don't know if I've asked you about this yet. And by no means are you a former NFL player, but you are a diehard football fan, and you've seen the explosion of joint practices like I have. But when I hear from a guy like Brad Nortman, who we hear from every day 2 to 5 on Kyle Brust and Nortman, say he doesn't view joint practices as good replacements for actual preseason games. Right? You don't get the same buildup. You don't have the same atmosphere. You don't have the same opportunity to get hit if you're a quarterback, right? Like in joint practices, you're not getting touched. So he doesn't view them as equal levels of preparation, I guess you could say, for the regular season. He views the joint practice beneath the preseason game. And I understand the case. I don't, though. Because I still view you as, okay, you're going up against ones. You've got live action, although you're not getting hit as hard, or maybe you're not going a full 100%. You're still going a full 90. You're in crucial game scenarios, whether it be the 2-minute drill, whether it be, going 85 yards down the field. Like, you're still simulating these big time scenarios that you will see in the regular season. So I like the replacement of the joint practices. And in the last 5 or so years, I'd say we've seen the explosion of them league-wide. Teams are really advocating for joint practices 2 or all 3 weeks of the preseason. The Packers this year doing it 2 weeks, as I mentioned here this week on Friday against Denver, and then next Thursday in Green Bay, they will host Baltimore for a joint practice. So if those are the remainder of Jordan Love's quote-unquote live reps for the remainder of the preseason, personally, I'm cool with it. Like, I'm good with that. Hunter, I'm curious on your thoughts, though, because this is kind of a new thing. Joint practices have always existed, but not to the level they do in 2024. So if Jordan Love only participates in joint practices the rest of the way, you cool with it?
No, I don't think it's enough, because he's going to be going up against guys who, you hear the saying like, oh, they're so much faster when they're out there on the field or when they're actually playing in a game than the way that they practice. And that's going to happen again. So you're going to have DBs who, sure, they're getting beat by Romeo Doubs in a practice, so they're wide open. But in an actual game, they just play a little bit differently, and things feel different, and the game moves differently than it does in a joint practice. I really only like the joint practices because, in theory, they should cut down on how many fights you have in training camp, especially late, because you're going up against the same guy over and over again, and you're seeing him all the time. So, like, fights inevitably happen within your team. So I like the idea of trying to cut that down. But for Jordan Love, it's not enough. Like, I don't understand how just because they have a different jersey on suddenly means that the practice is totally different. The intensity is the same as a game day, and you can simulate a game day. I just don't get it.
Well, okay, so 2 things to get into there, and 2 very different things. Number one, the fights, I don't know that they necessarily cut down. I actually think they're almost amplified.
Initially, I think they cut down, and now guys are like, oh, there's somebody else. I'm competing, and like now they've started to ramp up.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. No, I agree with that point. Now, I'm curious to see, to your second point, your later point, on just because it's a practice, it's still a practice. I don't know how much I agree. I don't really know, I guess it would be my response. I'm not in there, right? I don't have shoulder pads on. I'm not in the trenches. I don't know if guys, I don't even know players other than Surtain on the Broncos defense anymore. I was going to use Bradley Chubb as the example, but I don't think he's there anymore. But let's just use a random name, right? Let's just say Rashawn Gary against the Broncos right tackle. Mike McGlinchey, I think, is there. Is Rashawn Gary going 100%? Or is he going 80% because he knows he can't hit the quarterback? It's a fair point by you. But I'm good with this. I don't want to run the risk of Love getting injured. And clearly, maybe I'm just I don't know, maybe I'm scaredy cat. Maybe I'm helicopter fan, however you want to list it out. But this team is not getting to the great heights it expects to without Jordan Love on the field. And the last thing Packers fans need and the Packers need is Jordan Love getting, even if it's a small injury, right? Rolling an ankle in a meaningless game. You just can't have that. So I'm good with playing it cautious, especially with him, right? Like other names that we'll talk about here in a minute, I can hear the case for. But Jordan Love's the one where you're paying him $55 million a year. You're expecting him to be great. You're expecting him to play at an MVP level. So why risk it? Especially when you can get quote unquote live bullets in these joint practices. I don't see the reasoning for risking it. Right? Risk reward just doesn't add up to me.
But Packer fans have been kind of ripping apart Christian Watson for being a little more conservative, not risking things, taking it easy, and then all of a sudden, oh nope, we got to take it easy. We can't have anything potentially happen to a different player. And I get how important the quarterback position is, but if you're trying to protect your quarterback too much, then you're just running the other risk of okay, defensive linemen are going to get hurt because they're trying to pull up and they're not doing things the way that they need to be doing. And then that can risk injuries. So I don't think the idea of just completely being super cautious, he's got to go out there and play. You've got to be out there. You've got to get more reps. And especially given that the Packers are opening this season against the Eagles, a team that's projected to win their division, a team the Packers will probably be competing with for a 1 or a 2 seed in the playoffs, you need to get this win early on. This might be one of the earliest must wins you could see in a season because of the way that things should shape out in the NFC. You've got to be fully ready to go. You can't start slow against the Eagles.
No, I fully agree. Right? I mean, it's a team you're going to be jockeying for playoff positioning with. So it's a really big Week 1 matchup. And the Packers' schedule, as we've talked about before, it breaks out really fun this year. Right? You start the season with a real playoff matchup. You play Detroit twice, who you're competing with the division, or competing for the division with in Detroit, obviously, as a divisional opponent, who was just in the NFC Championship game a year ago. You have San Francisco on the schedule. How about the AFC teams on the schedule, too, right? You have a Houston matchup on the schedule. You play Miami on Thanksgiving Day. You've got some really big matchups against really good teams this year, and you do not start slow when you play a team like the Eagles in Brazil Week 1. So you don't want history to repeat itself, as it has with Matt LaFleur as the head coach, where you don't play your guys as much as maybe you should in the preseason, and they're not ready, quote unquote, and they get smoked in the first week, especially when you're on a national spotlight like that. You do not want to drop the ball. So I'm curious to see how it shakes out if they do play any starters or some of their starters, or primarily Jordan Love, in preseason game 3 against Baltimore. But they're going to handle preseason game 2 against Denver, second straight week on the road. Preseason game 2, after seeing some nice things from the first team offense in Week 1, as little as it is in 3 plays, they're going to handle it for some of those competitions, for backups, for depth pieces, and for fringe roster guys, which I think you do need a full game to truly evaluate that. And now that the preseason is only 3 games versus the former 4, it's just something interesting to see how teams differently handle the preseason, right? So, in my eyes, how the Packers are handling it is game 1 is get out there, let's just get some live reps. Game 2, let's use this as the evaluation game, and then game 3 is TBD. But I'd be happy if Love doesn't play again, but we will see. All right, let's talk about it. Speaking of a fringe roster guy and a guy that's fighting for position piece. Is he RB2? Is he RB3? Is he off the roster? That's A.J. Dillon, the 5th-year running back. Look, I always struggle with A.J. Dillon because You love what he does in the community. You love how he's wrapped his arms around Green Bay in Northeast Wisconsin and is just a dude that is the epitome of what it means to be a great Green Bay Packer off the field. When it comes to on the field, it has not been a good rodeo for him the last few years. Last year, he had a golden opportunity with Aaron Jones out to solidify himself as the best running back 2 in the league. He had many weeks where he was viewed as the starter, as the workhorse, quote unquote, and he averaged like 3 yards a carry, which just frankly isn't good enough, especially as the offensive line really got their footing last year. And I know how weird of a year last year was. But then in the preseason game, you get 3 opportunities. You're unable to get a few yards. And again, the offensive line gave him no help, right? The defense just ate their lunch, Cleveland's did, when it came to that 3rd and 4th down opportunity that A.J. Dillon had. But he's a guy I struggle with because you want to like him, you want to root for him, but the product he's putting out just isn't good enough. And I thought this exchange with Fox 11 in Green Bay, Cody Krupp, one of their sports reporters, and A.J. Dillon at his locker yesterday, was telling to me in a couple different ways about how A.J. Dillon is feeling about this preseason and about his role on this team, because I think it is completely up in the air. So let's hear you'll hear the voice of Cody Krupp first, and then you hear A.J. Dillon's response at his locker yesterday about some of the feedback, I think is the word we'll use, that A.J. Dillon is getting on the internet and how A.J. Dillon feels about his position right now as it stands on August 14th.
And on Saturday, you didn't have a ton of opportunities, of course, trying to get, the 2nd, 3rd, and 1. When you look back on film, people on Twitter might say, why can't he get a yard? Like, what did you see when you watch back? Is there, it seems like, is there no room? It's just nothing to, what can you do at some point?
I graded a 98%. If you know football, you watch the tape, and you don't look at the stats, and you are actually put yourself in the game, somebody else go out there and do more than what I did. That's just a situation, and that's football. And sometimes you have a drive like that where, a block doesn't happen here, block doesn't happen there. I don't know what Twitter said because I don't go on Twitter unless I'm posting something, but I can imagine somebody, there's nowhere you're going to go there in those certain situations. But in all honesty, man, if you don't live inside my house, your opinion to me is so secondary that I couldn't be bothered with it. But to anybody on Twitter or whatever you can do, just enjoy, just watch. And I promise you, everybody in this building is working their ass off to do the best they can.
So I'm not disagreeing with that everybody in the building is working their ass off to do the best they can, right? We know the expectations the Packers have for the upcoming season, coming off a playoff win a year ago and really a divisional round appearance they should have won against San Francisco. We understand the expectations and where they lie. Okay, so I'm not doubting that everybody in the building is working their ass off. To pull the "you can't do what we're doing" card, it's just lazy to me. Right? Yeah, I know that, AJ. I'm 6'3", $170. I understand I'm not a big bruiser running back, but I can still evaluate that what you're doing is not good enough. I can still understand, and I don't need to look at stats or the game. I don't need to look at anything to know that what you're doing is not good enough. Now, does that mean he can't rebound? Of course not. Does that mean he's not going to make the roster? No, not necessarily. But the rest of that shows frustration. And to pull out, I graded, what did he say, 98%? Okay, great. What did you have, 3 carries for 2 yards? I think it was 4 carries for 2 yards, actually. I think he averaged half a yard a carry. That's really bad in a preseason game. I don't care how bad the offensive line broke down. As much as I view it, Emmanuel Wilson has a roster spot above you. They just drafted a running back in the 3rd round, Marshawn Lloyd. Now he's dealing with a hammy issue, so you might make the roster by default to be running back 3 and then get cut in week 3 or get stashed on the practice squad in week 3. I understand his frustration. And to be real frank with you, I hope he comes out and he proves me wrong and he runs all over Denver's defense, because I imagine this will be a guy we see on Sunday against the Broncos. But to hear that and not really hear any accountability for him to lead off with, I graded at a 98%, That tells me you're not realizing what you're doing isn't good enough. Why don't you think you were offered Bonko dollars? You were brought back on the weirdest contract of all time, which is essentially a veteran minimum. You're probably roster guy 54 or 55 as it stands right now. You're on the outside looking in. So with 2 preseason games to go, A.J. Dillon, who just hasn't put it together in his first 4 years, has a lot to prove. And for him to take that stance, for him to come at it from that angle, just shows me you're not paying attention to what your head coach is saying. Matt LaFleur Monday, talking about A.J. Dillon, had this to say.
Yeah, it wasn't good enough. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of daylight to run the ball, and certainly when you have 3 cracks at it to get a yard and you don't get it done, I mean, that's a problem. So we got to make sure we do a better job with that. I think we got to play with a little bit better leverage, get our pad level down, and sometimes you just got to bury your head in there and do what you can. But I don't think the opportunity wasn't great in any of those situations.
The opportunity wasn't great. And of course there's blame to go on the offensive line. But it's not a good look for A.J. Dillon. And that's a guy you need to see a lot more out of in these final 2 preseason games. I don't know how much opportunity he'll have, but I don't view him as running back 2. Did you see what Emmanuel Wilson did on Saturday? He was pretty darn good. Emmanuel Wilson had some really good moments against the 49ers in the divisional round game 2. This running back competition, it might be over. Unless A.J. Dillon does something spectacular. Give me Jacobs. Give me Wilson. Give me Lloyd. And farewell to the mayor of Door County. It's the way I view it right now.
It's also weird with his 98% comment. Like, great, you were at a 98%. But that other 2% were the 2 plays where the team really needed you to do what you're supposed to be able to do, and you didn't do it. So it's awesome you graded it at 98%, but that 2% was really, really bad. So it's weird to say that when you know that you didn't come through on 2 plays you needed to come through on and do the one thing you should be doing at your style of a running back. It's just strange. The way, I'm guessing I wouldn't want to be in those meeting rooms in that running back room with him, only from the sense of he is probably very upset with himself and he knows what it is. And that was a moment of just I really don't want to talk about this, but then I'm going to still talk about it anyways because he just kind of got going. And
yeah, one of those classic moments, no doubt.
Yeah. And it's I'm going to pull the Midwest thing and I feel bad for him. And like you said, I'm not a Packers fan, but I like the guy and he's fun. And it's I'm trying to be nice about this, but dude's not good enough right now. And he, like you said, he is in danger of being gone. And him acting as though, oh, okay, yeah, you can't do this. Dude, everybody can see you're not good enough. Dude's maybe good enough to be getting reps with the Commanders. That's how bad he's playing right now.
Actually, they have a pretty good running back room. Austin Eckler there now, Brian
but Austin Eckler will get hurt for 4 weeks in the middle of the season, so he'll get reps then.
Fair point. The groundhog has arrived. Joshy DiMaggio popping his head up as Hunter is being Midwest nice. We're talking A.J. Dillon, Joshy. Thoughts?
I was surprised that A.J. Dillon took that opportunity to kind of show his teeth for the first time. If we're talking Midwest nice, he's been the Midwest, even though he came from Boston College. He's been the example of Midwest nice for a really long time, which I don't know how to interpret that. Maybe he was fed up with the person asking the question, or maybe the stuff about him and his lack of production has finally started to get to him, and he's realizing what he's done isn't good enough. I also don't like the appeal to, really in any respect of life, I did my job, so it's not on me. Because that's essentially what he's saying there, is my offensive line didn't block good enough. Yes, I was asked to get 2 yards at one point and then 1 yard the rest of the time, but that's all I could do. I could have done nothing more. I could not have performed better, even though, as you played shortly after that, Matt LaFleur said his pad level is probably a little high. Probably need to get in there. If you're it's not just a big man's game in terms of the big guy who gets the extra yard, that's like the job of a running back.
100%.
Even the little guys. Christian McCaffrey is asked, go get me an extra yard there, please.
Correct. And the other thing here is he said, y'all couldn't do what we do.
Yeah,
and overarching, I agree. But Joshy, tell me if I'm off here, because as I always say on this show, I try to create an environment where we're allowed to say stupid things. I don't think what I'm about to say is stupid, though. If you gave me 4 rushing attempts, I'm averaging half a yard a carry. That's a foot and a half. That's 16 inches.
No, you're not. No, you're
18
not.
inches.
Strouf, you wouldn't even get back to the line of scrimmage before you'd have 3 defenders in your face because of how slow you would be.
Hunter, I got to get 18 inches past the line of scrimmage. All I got to do is
no.
dive.
No, it's not just 18 inches.
Dive.
But it's not just 18 inches. You're lining up 6 yards behind the line of scrimmage. You have to meet the quarterback 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
I'm shooting out of that like a cannon.
No way. You would look like
downhill
a snail.
speed, baby.
No.
I've got multiple worries. One, I don't know. Have you ever played running back position at all in youth football?
I'm going to make you feel bad now. I had heart surgery when I was 3. Could never play football.
Okay, well, then I want to say the exchange of running back to quarterback going to be difficult. They come fast. They hammer it in your gut. You're going to have to control the ball.
Yep.
And then you're going to have to lift your eyes and look up around and say, "Where's my hole?" And then after you,
but half a yard, Josh. Half a yard.
After you get tackled behind the line the first time, you get blown up. I don't know if you're getting up the second.
Well, that part I agree with. That part I do agree with.
You better get your 18 inches to never touch the football again, because that's the only hope you have.
That handoff.
Yeah, we do have a poll.
I was going to say, that handoff would be so hard into your gut, Strouf, that you would throw up. Like, I know you well enough, and I know how soft you are. You would throw up on that first handoff.
Wow, shots fired.
I don't know how inaccurate they are. So I don't know.
It's a tough place to be.
I don't know that it's a shot. iRock on the ESPN Madison YouTube page says, gotta say, I'm not concerned about A.J. Dillon at all. Not in the slightest. It's weird hearing all these pundits being ridiculously harsh about one preseason game, but it's not about the one preseason game. That's just a part of it. If you go back and you look at the opportunity A.J. Dillon had last season in the regular season when Aaron Jones was injured, he didn't provide. He averaged like 3 yards a carry last year. That's one of the worst in the league, I would guess, based on the number of carries he had. He had a fine season statistically, but that yards per carry was really bad. Josh, you go ahead.
If A.J. Dillon was good enough, would they have signed Josh Jacobs and then drafted a running back in the 3rd round?
The answer would be no.
Oh.
Definitively.
So the fact that he's brought back up on a contract that if he doesn't perform, the Packers can let go of him for free. Cost them $0.0 to have him in camp right now.
Yeah.
So for it to be just the preseason carry, no. We've been talking about A.J. Dillon not getting the extra yard or not like running his size since like his rookie year. This has been a continue. How many games did he start last year as the starting? Like 6 or 7?
Probably 6, yeah.
And he averaged like 3.5 yards a carry. There's 1,000 guys that played college football that can do exactly that. That's why the running back position is so devalued, because there are replacement level everywhere. Those guys are falling out of trees. Packers are signing guys from the UFL who are just free.
Yeah.
There's a reason he's being brought up, and it's not just because, well, we're picking one person today to be mean to.
No, it's not that. And it's not even the 3 carries. I mean, certainly that didn't help, but it is not the reason it's being brought up. I think I've been critical of A.J. Dillon more than most, dating back to last season. I remember on Green Bay game day when A.J. Dillon released his children's book, Quadzilla Finds His Footing. I was making jokes about how he hasn't done that in his real career. Quadzilla hadn't found his footing. And he did for one game, maybe last year. I don't remember which one it was. Maybe Denver. I think he had like 80 yards and a touchdown. And he was okay in that game. But other than that, it's been tough sledding here for A.J. Dillon since that rookie breakout and that big game against Tennessee in the snow. If I had to guess right now, I don't think he'll make the roster. Now, it depends on the Marshawn Lloyd injury. He's dealing with a hamstring injury. Could there be a way that Marshawn Lloyd begins the season on the PUP list? Yes. Could that solidify A.J. Dillon a roster spot? Yes. But could it be Marshawn Lloyd bounces back in a week and he has no residual effects from the hamstring injury and he's good to go for week 1? I would guess A.J. Dillon's probably not on the roster as we stand today. Bill on the ESPN Milwaukee YouTube chat says, trade him or cut him are our only options. Now, the issue with trading him is I don't know that anybody wants to give anything up for him. He was a free agent this year. And he came back on what was very, very close to. It was a deal. I don't remember the name of the exact deal, if you want to get in the weeds on the contract stuff. But it was a deal I'd never heard of. But it was very close to a veteran's minimum. He's making about $1 million this year. And vet minimum is $950,000. So he's not getting paid well. He's not getting paid like, his job is safe. And as Joshy just pointed out, the way his deal works is they could cut him with no effects to the cap. Not that he's taking up much of it, but it's essentially no effects to the cap in which they could get rid of him. So it's kind of a best case scenario, BCS for the Packers front office, as they kind of await to see what happens with A.J. Dillon and how this running back competition shakes out, Joshy.
The contract is called a 4-year qualifying contract. So it is for guys who are not drafted in the first round, obviously, who basically aren't catching on and aren't getting offered another contract. They provide you basically a punishment-free option to bring somebody back for their 4th year.
There you go. Well, this will be his 5th year now, because he's drafted in 20, so 20, 21, 22, 23. After your 4th year, maybe?
Maybe it is after.
Must be after your 4th.
Yeah.
Because it's his 5th year.
Is it his 5th year?
Yeah, he's drafted in 2020, same class as Love, 2020,
Gotcha.
2021, 22, 23. Yeah, that's 4 years.
Yeah.
So it must be after your rookie contract is up. A 4-year deal typically for those not picked in the first round. So there you go. All right, more to come on the running back battle, especially after Sunday's preseason game. Go ahead, Hunter.
I mean, if I was the Cowboys, I would do like the Dallas Keuchel trade him for $1 and try and get him. But like that's about all you're doing. Like I wouldn't even give up a 7th round pick for the guy. If you could do cash considerations, that'd be it.
Yeah, I wouldn't anticipate anybody. I mean, look, he'll probably end up being. I shouldn't say probably. There's a chance he could end up becoming a free agent, and maybe the Packers will put him on the practice squad because they like AJ, and then somebody could offer him a contract. He could decide, hey, I'm going to take it, or hey, I want to stay in Green Bay. So we will see. We'll see. All right, let's take a break. But when we come back, I do want to dive into, okay, are there any guys that are maybe starters or close to starters or, borderline starters that you would like to see the rest of the preseason after the news that starters likely won't play Sunday against Denver? Jordan Love definitely will not play Sunday against Denver. So I want to talk about some of those names. Also want to take a look at something Dan Orlovsky said about the Packers pass catchers. And finally, want to wrap up with some Badgers talk ahead of what we learned. We will do that all coming up in just a second. But Mr. Irrelevant is presented by Door County Distillery, locally produced, handcrafted, and award-winning spirits made locally in beautiful Door County. Football season is whiskey season for me, whether it's the 27-time award-winning single malt whiskey, the delicious rye whiskey, or my personal favorite, the bourbon, and their exclusive cherry bourbon, which you can pick up at Door County Distillery in Carlsville. It's whiskey season for me. But if it's not for you, cherry vodka, normal vodka, gin, they've got everything. They do it well. They do it better than everybody else. It's local. It's affordable. Support local business. Support Door County Distillery. Check out their website, doorcountydistillery.com, for more information, and available at retailers statewide near you. So make sure you check them out and support local business, doorcountydistillery.com. Step aside for 60 seconds when we come back. More Packers talk. It's Mr. Irrelevant. I'm Alex Strouf. Back in Carlsville at the legendary Door County Distillery with my buddy Rob from Door County Distillery, and we have a Door County Distillery exclusive in front of us right now, Rob. Cherries, bourbon, two of my favorite things. Put them together. You got Door County Distillery cherry bourbon. It's beautiful. We're just doing shots?
Yeah, we're just going to
celebrate.
straight up. I mean, it is good for mixed drinks. You can put it in old fashions, Manhattans, but sometimes you just want to straight up take a little shot of it.
I won't complain about that. Like I said, two of my favorite things: cherries, bourbon. Door County cherries, bourbon. I can't complain. Yeah. Cheers to you, buddy. Thanks a lot.
Prost.
Ooh, that's tasty. Oh, that's good.
Yep.
That's really smooth.
Get that cherry flavor. Yep. Not a whole lot of burn. Beautiful.
That's terrific. Door County Distillery exclusive, the cherry bourbon. Check out their website with a huge list of unique cocktail recipes at doorcountydistillery.com. That's doorcountydistillery.com. Should probably put my headphones back on if we're doing the show, huh?
Yeah,
They're
probably.
Smooth by me right there. That was smooth by me. I just want to take a little walk. I didn't realize we were talking about A.J. Dillon and Jordan Love for 35 minutes. Love it, man. It's football season. Let's go. All right, 2 preseason games remain. Obviously, Denver and Baltimore, as I keep mentioning. And I'm curious, and we can work around the room here if we want to a little bit, on guys we definitely would like to see more of in the preseason, who maybe are starters or maybe rookies. Look, I'm comfortable not seeing Jordan Love again in a preseason game. Obviously, those joint practices, I need to see him in the first-team offense in. But, for example, a guy like Christian Watson, I think I want to see more of him in the preseason. Just run a few routes, show you can make it through. I don't care if he has 0 catches in the preseason. Just get him some live bullets. I don't think that hurts. For a guy like Romeo Doubs, I'd be fine if he sat out the remainder of the preseason. So I'm just curious if there's any names, Joshy, Hunter, and myself, that pop to mind when I say, hey, who do you need to see more of in the preseason? I'm good without seeing Jordan Love. But for maybe like a Sean Ryan, who's going to play right guard, definitely want to see more of him. Elton Jenkins, don't need to see more of him. This exercise makes sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, Joshy, is there a name that pops to your head? Or several names that pop to your head for guys you want to see more of?
Yeah, there's quite a few, actually. I want to see all of 5, 6, 7, 8 of the wide receiver core.
Agreed.
Rank them how you want, but names like...
So are you good with Wicks and Dobbs and Watson?
Yeah. Okay. I think for the most part, I think we kind of need to bubble wrap Watson, as sad as that might sound at this point. I think we know what he is. The biggest challenge is him staying healthy, because if we have a healthy Christian Watson, we've got everything we could ever imagine.
Yeah.
I think those 4 positions and kind of how they're going to figure out what's Bo Melton going to look like. Is Grant DuBose deserve a spot? Malik Heath, is he out? Names like that. I want to see the inside linebackers that were drafted.
Edrin Cooper, Tyron Hopper.
Yes, I'd like to see more of them.
Who both returned to practice this week.
I think Devontae Wyatt also.
Totally agree. It's a name I brought up earlier.
I'd like to see more of him. I do want to see Carrington Valentine. Is Eric Stokes just playing that good, or have we seen a step back from him? I don't really know. In terms of him taking that second corner position. And then I think I feel pretty comfortable putting on ice Evan Williams and...
Really? Javon Bullard?
Yes. I think we kind of know what we got there, and I think they can be such a strategic advantage to keeping them healthy and keeping them playing that I don't know how much they can gain in a vanilla... Because those guys seem ahead of schedule.
I would agree with that. However... I just feel like live bullets matter more to the rookies than the 4th, 5th, 6th year guys.
The reason I'm not super concerned about it is because they do have Keyshawn Nixon and they do have some other guys with experience behind them. Because the Packers are going to keep more people at the safety position than just the 2 names we've been talking about incessantly. So I don't think, even if one's having a bad game, I think you're deep enough and you have experience enough where I'm not super concerned about them like being the reason we blow a game.
What about a name like Luke Musgrave? I know you had the conversation or planned to have the conversation on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy about how he's been kind of quiet this camp. Mm-hmm. Is that a guy who you think, and Chewy, obviously a former tight end himself on that show, talks about how difficult of a position it is to come in and play. He's entering year 2. He had his flashes, and several of them in his rookie year. Is that a guy you'd like to see more of, or can you throw him on ice as well?
I think not only should we like have to in terms of the Packers. Like,
are you an owner? Are you allowed to say we?
I just use it because it's the team I root for and invest all my emotions in, so it's a we. Because when they lose,
I lose. You're
one
of those guys.
When they lose, I lose. Yeah, just like his relationship. When he refers to him and his girlfriend, it's we.
Yeah.
When you refer to the Packers, it's we.
I think it's pedantic and annoying to be like, oh, don't say we.
No, I think that's a good rule of thumb.
No.
But, okay, fair enough. I'm not going to argue about this.
I think it's relatable.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that's Joshy. Relatable.
I am Dr. Relatable.
Oh, yeah. Okay, mister. I put out fires on porches.
I just don't think, like, without Luke Musgrave, if anything happens there, we're down to Ben Sims and Tyler Davis. Is that his name?
That's correct.
I mean, we're getting to names I don't even recognize here. Guys who you don't typically want playing snaps. If Tucker Kraft was healthy, I think that would be worth it because Tucker Kraft has been injured toward his pectoral muscle.
There you go. What?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that would be value, but Luke Musgrave, you need a healthy tight end.
Fair enough. Speaking of Luke Musgrave, before we get to Hunter on any names we missed or disagrees on, we are up to 19 interceptions for the Packers defense in training camp. 8 of them have been thrown by Jordan Love. Is that concerning for Love? Is it optimism for the defense, or is it both?
I mean,
I would vote both.
I think it's also quarterbacks like Brock Purdy said it. Like, I'm going to try things in training camp that I'm not going to do in games. Like, I'm going to be more aggressive to see what I can do.
Agreed.
So it could also be that.
Certainly plays a role, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things where we're so accustomed to Aaron Rodgers that unless you're like a superhuman thrower of the football, those things kind of happen because, you are risking it. And it would make sense. You want to give your guys a chance. So
he underthrew it, though. And that's something.
Yeah, that's a miss. That's going to happen unless you're Aaron Rodgers, really.
Oh, man. Okay, I'm not going to freak out over a training camp interception, but I'm just throwing it out there. 19 for the Packers defense, so that's good.
Yeah, it seems like the approach that, we could say what we want to about Pratt and Clifford, who struggled massively in training camp.
Yeah.
But there seems to be a focus on getting the ball and having vision to the ball in the air, which was not a thing that happened before.
But it's such a cliche, but it's true. You get what you emphasize.
Yeah.
And Jeff Hafley has come in and completely emphasized turnovers, and creating turnovers.
I don't think copy and paste the exact same scenario from last year to this year with Joe Barry's defense. I don't think they have 19 interceptions.
I would agree.
I think that number is considerably lower.
Yeah.
There's a reason you're one of the lowest teams in terms of interceptions in the league last year. I think it's multifaceted. I think it's a little different now, and I think the defense is really going.
Love a good multifaceted.
And well, let's be honest. Like Evan Williams seems to just be intercepting the ball.
He's a ball hawk. Yeah, he's a ball hawk.
He might just be one of those guys.
Oh, so you're in on Evan Williams?
Oh yeah,
but clearly we need to get you an Evan Williams jersey. Yeah, fun story, real quick on Evan Williams before we wrap up. Who we want to see the rest of the way. So day one of training camp, a bunch of us went up to Green Bay and kind of take in what is the opening day of training camp. And I was walking around with everybody's favorite Packers fan, quote unquote, Ben Brust, and he yelled at Evan Williams, who wears jersey number 33. Aaron Jones. And Williams turns around and goes, 2.0, baby. So it's like he's almost embracing taking that jersey number, and boy, has he popped off since that moment. So I don't know if Brusty lit a fire under Evan Williams or what. He'd probably like to take credit for that. But
was Ben Brust trying to be funny, or was that a genuine mistake?
No, I think he's trying to be funny.
I should
Are you
remember.
sure with Ben? Like, are we actually sure?
Are we ever? Of course not.
Talk about multifaceted, that fella.
Yeah, that fella's multifaceted.
And also, he has the same luxury that Chewy has, is even if you make a mistake, you can just say it was a joke.
Correct.
And people will be like, yeah, I guess I got to believe it.
Gotta believe it. Dude, Brust today, we're in a full team meeting. So I don't know, probably about 50 or 60 of us in the room. And he's sitting in the back, and he has this metal water bottle. I bet he knocked it over 5 or 6 times to the point where he walked out of the room because it kept interrupting the speaker. It was unbelievable. I mean, it was just the most display of idiocy I've ever seen. Anyway,
but
so
also very
Hunter, any names as we get back to the topic at hand, rest of the way for the preseason? Any names we missed? Any names you want to highlight? Any names you want to see that maybe we have brought up that maybe needs the reps? And you're kind of a preseason hardo. It's turning out you think Love should play in that Baltimore game, right? So is there any names that we haven't highlighted already in this episode that you want to get to?
I mean, I know Josh already kind of brought it up, but interior D-line, other than Kenny Clark, like he's done everything he needs to. But like, I just feel like they got to figure out that other spot at D-tackle, because the last thing you want is to have that be a weak spot, and then those linebackers are just having to deal with blocking the entire game, and that can just get bad. So figure out, is it Wyatt? Is it going to be Slayton? Is it Carl Brooks? Like, what the heck is going to be that second D tackle spot?
Yeah, it's probably. I mean, I think it's Slayton. I think he solidified his role, but also you got to figure out the rotation too.
Yeah, but like the face you made, as you said, it's probably Slayton. Tells me everything that like we need to know about what that position is. So like they've got to find a second D tackle.
I think the buzz around Slayton has been like the same as Evan Williams and even like Romeo Doubs. Like I know it's not as talked about it, But I've heard he has been one of the. I mean, I've read in multiple places that he's been one of the more. He slimmed down because he was like a true nose tackle. And the interesting thing is, like graded out PFF wise, you can take or leave those stats, whatever.
Well, you're clearly taking them.
I am, because that position, especially nose tackle, is pretty hard to evaluate. It's the eye test doesn't apply to like the same thing it does as a quarterback. I can see, are you throwing to open men? Is the ball accurate? And like, is your team doing well? When it comes to that position, I tend to lean towards those stats. The same with offensive line. He was like one of the better graded nose tackles across the NFL. Now he's changing position, but he slimmed down, so he has some sort of disruption factor here that has to matter and factor in. The other name that makes me think about, who I've heard zero about, is Carl Brooks.
Yeah, my guy.
I'm a big Carl Brooks guy too.
Yeah, I know you are. Yeah, we'll see. It's hard to evaluate D linemen, as you just mentioned, right? Like you don't get disruptive as a stat,
And I don't always know their job.
No,
Because there was times where Kenny Clark's job was, hey, take up 2 blockers.
and it worked.
Yeah.
And it worked really well. Totally. Yeah, we'll see. I think that's a good point by Hunter. Interior D-line. I mean, look, that whole defense is still kind of a question mark. We don't exactly know what it is. We know they're performing well. We know they looked pretty good against Cleveland. But we will see. So, curious on your thoughts on the YouTube stream. If you have any other names we missed, feel free to comment on Facebook as well, or tweet at us at Alex_Strouf, at Josh_DiMaggio, at _Hunter V. Did I get that right? Where's the underscore there?
Or
is it the Hunter
I think
underscore
you said
V?
it right. I don't even remember.
Okay.
Like, I'm on Twitter.
We got to
but,
work
like,
on that.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I just don't really care. And I should. Like,
Okay.
it would probably be helpful for me to care, but it is the Hunter
Speaking of
underscore
Twitter.
V. So,
Speaking of Twitter, I got a text from you last night, Hunter.
yeah.
Yes, you texted me. You texted me a tweet from Graham Mertz is good, at Mertz is good on Twitter.
Yep, my
And it
favorite
says,
account. It's the best account.
Grammy Chaos, and there's just a meme of Graham Mertz staring back at from a burning building, and it's all the logos of the team Florida plays this week. You said one of my best tweets.
Yeah.
Now, you've always denied running this account, because back when I used to host Wisconsin College Game Day and Graham Mertz was still the Badgers quarterback, I DM'd this account, and I said, I'm begging you to call into our postgame show. This is back in 2022. Completely anonymous, just Mertz is a good guy, need an official statement. I think this was after a good Mertz game. And he said, just saw this, I'll call sometime when the time is right. Appreciate the talk about the account on the show. All about spreading Mertz positivity. I said, enjoy your weekend. Cheers. Is this you?
No, it is not me. But
Okay. So why did you claim the tweet?
I was just having some fun. It was also accompanied with a graphic
fishy.
of
This is fishy.
Florida being one of the teams that can cause the most chaos in college football, because they play like 8 teams this year that could potentially be college
Miami,
football playoff
A&M,
teams.
Tennessee, Georgia,
Yeah.
Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State, all on Florida schedule.
Yeah,
I'm praying for old Graham. That's a
this might be the most difficult
Murder
college football
throw.
schedule ever. So if he can light it up, oh man, first round pick, Graham Mertz. If Florida's
might-
a 9-win
I mean,
team, like that's the
I'm
talk
with you.
that's going to come. It's going to be awesome.
He could totally elevate his draft stock. You're not wrong about that.
But yeah, I did
I
not
believe you
send
just
that
said those
tweet.
words.
What that Mertz could he's listed as like the 4th best quarterback in this class, Josh.
First
Yeah.
round pick.
If he goes 9-3,
The guy's
With
got
that
a pea
schedule.
shooter on his arm.
a pea shooter.
He literally has the
He's not a-
exact
he's not a pill slinger?
opposite.
He stinks.
No,
Yeah.
no,
His
he
ball
doesn't.
floats when he throws out routes. That guy stinks.
Did you ever watch Alex Hornibrook throw the ball, or Jack Cohn?
Oh, okay,
They did the
okay.
same thing.
I mean,
Yeah, but those
And,
are
like, they
NFL
were even
quarterbacks.
worse.
We're talking about Mertz as an NFL quarterback.
and also, how definitively better was he in Wisconsin?
not.
Yeah.
Well,
Not
that was
is the
also
answer.
Paul Chris saying, "Oh, you do these things really well. Well, we're going to have you actually do the
right.
exact opposite of it, and then we're going to act shocked that you can't do it well." Like, it
I
was
envision
stupid.
when Hunter pulls out his "I'm going to defend excuses," Graham Mertz excuses sheet. It's like one of those long scrolls you see in the movies,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
it like
Yeah.
rolls 100
Oh, it does.
feet away.
Yeah. It's like a red
I will
carpet.
defend
Yeah.
Graham Mertz until the day I die.
I have never met a bigger Graham Mertz defender than Hunter Vaughn.
I am his
It is-
biggest fan.
it is- He's Florida's quarterback. Like, we don't give a damn.
I tweeted about how we owe him an apology. Graham's sister liked the tweet.
No, we don't.
And then and then deleted it. Like, she was all in on it. Graham Mertz's family knows about it.
She was all in on it that so fast that she deleted it.
Because she realized, maybe I shouldn't be retweeting tweets about how Wisconsin fans owe my brother an apology. Probably not a good look. And we do.
Maybe they do.
He was the best quarterback that this program has had since
apology.
Russell Wilson.
It's a good point. Good point by Josh.
Yeah, I'm the one who needs an apology for having to watch that putrid performance.
Then Paul Chris should be the one apologizing. He's the one that
he doesn't have a job.
Yeah, and
he's an analyst at Texas. Analyst.
Wow. Cool.
Wow, good job for old Paul.
It seems like Paul had to serve a harsher sentence than Graham Mertz did.
That's true.
Yeah, because he deserved it.
A little bit.
Because he ruined that incredible talent.
Okay, we're done with this.
No, we're not.
We will stay in college football, though.
It.
We will stay in college. We can get back to it later. We will stay in college football, though. Some news out of Madison. Earlier today, as Miami transfer Tyler Van Dyke officially named the starter by offensive coordinator Phil Longo. That was the most anticlimactic quarterback battle ever between him and Braden Locke. I don't think anybody anticipated Tyler Van Dyke losing. And he certainly didn't 16 days out from the opening game on the 30th. Tyler Van Dyke officially named the Badger starter. So, quarterback battle is over. Now, so that's positive, right? I mean, you anticipate that. You bring in a big transfer like Van Dyke in his final year of eligibility, in an offense that desperately needs some ammunition. And they seem to have some at the wide receiver position. They've got some good pieces there. But when you have a schedule that consists of the following teams: Alabama, USC, Oregon, Penn State, and Iowa, that's not going to be the easiest winning. I mean, that's 5 games that they could lose, right? So that's a 7-5 record at best. Now, Hunter has been on the bandwagon for months of Wisconsin will upset Alabama in week 3, which I hope he's right. It's going to be a party in Madison. I just don't anticipate that happening. So we will see. But Tyler Van Dyke, officially the Badger starter. All right, you learn something new every day. We learned something new today. It is time now for what we learned. I will kick it off for once. As this came out during our show, just want to get a quick reaction from everybody on this, aside from Will Levis's mayonnaise cologne, which is what I was actually going to talk about. So essentially, long story short here. Will Levis, Hellman's Mayo, pair up, make a cologne. They've sold it for the last 2 days. It's been sold out each day. It's an $8 bottle of cologne that is mayo-based. I'm trying to get a bottle. If I get one, we will do a smell test on the show next week. That is not what I learned. What I did learn is J.J. McCarthy out for the year with the meniscus tear. He will not play in his rookie season for the Minnesota Vikings, meaning that Sam Darnold will be the starting quarterback for the Vikings. So there you go. Vikings season gets worse. They have a little hope with J.J. McCarthy. They lose J.J. McCarthy. Positive spin zone, though. We throw rookies in too early anyway. It's a year for him to learn and get better. Maybe J.J. McCarthy can make it, but out this year with a meniscus tear.
That's bad news for my underdog bags. My best ball's been drafting a lot of J.J. McCarthy late in drafts.
Well, might want to revisit that strategy, pal.
We're good. Yeah, luckily it's always as the backup, so we can at least get through, but brother, I'm in trouble.
Ooh, brother.
I learned that Mark Zuckerberg, you might know him.
Do.
Facebook fame. He had commissioned a 7-foot statue of his wife that he placed in his backyard.
Yeah, so available on the video stream is Mark Zuckerberg's wife standing next to the 7-foot statue. It is, what would we say, teal in color?
Yeah, that's teal.
It almost looks like an Avatar character.
Close to an Avatar. I did notice that the mug seems to match. Maybe that's her favorite color, and that's why it was commissioned that way. I don't know, but I can tell you, I would not want to wake up every morning and enjoy my morning coffee on the back patio, because I imagine Zuck and his wife don't have a whole lot to do in the early mornings, and be looking at a statue myself. That's bizarre.
I tend to agree with that.
And I think if I were to buy a statue of my girlfriend, not a Mussolini statue, an actual statue of her, she would leave me, because that seems just bizarre.
No.
That's such a weird way
is
to
bizarre.
spend your money. Like, the levels of, like,
okay,
F you money.
Money is no object anymore.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
but,
FU
like,
money,
it's just-
right? Like, he has unreasonable amounts of
Yes,
it.
I know.
I guess if you're going to do it big. Maybe she views it as romantic and sweet. I find it a little creepy and weird, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And, the three of us aren't living in the Zuckerberg mansion. So I guess, do we have a lot of room to judge Zucky? No.
I think there's
sucky
still
for
some
Zucky? Is it sucky by Zucky? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's hard because when you're that rich, like, what does buying another yacht do for you?
Correct.
I'd argue not a whole lot.
I would also argue that.
But it also feels like, did you get her something she wanted? I guess maybe she has everything she wanted, but I got to imagine there's something out there.
But then do experiences. You can't tell me she's experienced everything in life she's ever wanted to experience.
Damn close.
No, there's new experiences all the time. There's different things you could do. I think you go the experience route, and then there's something new all the time. Instead of buying a jade statue that looks like it's out of a horror movie.
Whoa.
That thing was terrifying.
Calling his wife, you calling his wife ugly?
No, I'm saying the statue is ugly. She's not ugly. I'm saying the statue
Well, it's a representation of
It is.
her.
It is a representation of her.
I will stand by what I said. The statue is not good.
Okay.
The statue.
Put that out.
Don't let Zucky catch that on Facebook.
You're banned, brother.
See you, bro.
No.
All right.
What will I ever
All right,
do?
Hunter, take us home.
We've talked about this earlier in their past shows, but the Oregon Duck was trying to get into all of the different Big Ten stadiums.
Yeah.
And I can't get any more excited about college football. Like, having the video game back and getting to talk about how great Graham Mertz is, and then seeing the Oregon Duck trying to get into the stadiums. I'm just so pumped. I'm ready for this.
What's the Duck's name again? Puddles?
So I thought it was Puddles, but then he made a surprise appearance on the Pat McAfee show and was like shaking his head no, that his name wasn't Puddles. And I'm going to be honest, too lazy to actually look it up, but I'm going to call him Puddles.
I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah,
All right, we'll
that's
shout
what
out
I'm
to
here
Puddles.
for. Yeah.
Puddles for bringing up the college football hype. All right, that does it for us today. We're back with you Friday, beginning at 12:30 on the ESPN Milwaukee, ESPN Madison YouTube pages, the ESPN Madison Facebook, and available wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Wisconsin On Demand. Now, before we go, I do have some breaking news to report to Joshy about this upcoming Friday. Joshy, are you aware that you and I will be hanging out extra on Friday?
I did get news that you will be filling in for both of the hosts that are out with me, myself, Chewy, 7 to 9, Jen, Gabe, and Chewy.
Jen, Gabe, and Chewy, 94.5 ESPN Milwaukee, Friday morning beginning at 7 a.m. Will I wake up in time? We will all find out together. But extra Joshy, extra Strouf for all of you interested. Jen, Gabe, and Chewy, 7 to 9 on Friday. It's going to be an interesting one.
You got to talk to Jason Wilde, which you do plenty.
I do regularly. I can handle that.
How do you think you're going to handle the interview with Craig Karmazin?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, you got to talk to the
fine.
boss.
That is our CEO and founder of Good Karma Brands. That is our boss's boss, essentially.
And host of Sunday Karma.
And host of Sunday Karma, weekdays from 10 to, or Sunday from 10 to noon. I'm so used to seeing weekdays.
Yes.
Sundays from 10 to noon. Most Sundays, I should say.
Let's do a just quick dry run.
Yeah.
Top of your head, 2 questions. What do you got for Craig?
Sure. Yeah. Craig, how's the weather out there? That pretty good?
Yeah.
Is he in studio or over the phone?
Over the phone. Sometimes he does show up in studio, but that's rare. And he usually he'll text me and be like, "Hey, I'm going to be in 10 minutes. I'll be in studio."
I kind of hope that's the case. Because I'm going to shower. Right? Like, I could do the old thing where I come in 7, 9, and then I go home and shower and do the rest of my day. But I'm gonna wear a tie. Just anticipating his arrival. Yeah. I'm gonna suit it on Friday. Suit up for 7 a.m. No, I'm not gonna do that. Why am I lying to you? I don't know how that's gonna go. We'll all find out together. Looking forward to it, though. Looking forward to spending some morning time with Joshy on Friday. All right, that does it for us today. Looking forward to talking to you a bunch on Friday. We'll talk to you then. It's Mr. Irrelevant, presented by Door County Distillery. I'm Alex Strouf. Peace.